Okay, I wanted to take a minute and review the 3 biogeochemical cycles with you quickly. This first one is the water cycle, and the basic components here that you want to make sure you know are, pick anywhere you want to start. So let's talk about precipitation first. You can have rain and snow that precipitate or fall onto the land, or also fall into oceans or lakes. On land, that stuff will run off, eventually make it to a lake or an ocean somewhere. Then you have evaporation that occurs from the land and ocean. That's what that says, evaporation. That would cause water to go back up into the atmosphere. And up there you have condensation that occurs and forms clouds, which eventually leads to precipitation. Or one other thing you have happening is transpiration, where water is leaving plants through their pores during different things that plants do, respiration, photosynthesis. It's kind of like plant sweating. And also you have some seepage, where water would go down into the ground and collect there as groundwater. So that's the water cycle. Carbon cycle. Let's check that out real quick. So in the carbon cycle, same thing. You have parts of the cycle that exist in the atmosphere and parts that exist on land and in biological forms. So let's start with carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, which is listed here as atmospheric carbon. Again, that would be carbon dioxide, would be the form that would exist in. So we have CO2 in the atmosphere as the atmospheric carbon. That can diffuse. You have carbon dioxide that can just go right into the water of lakes and oceans, especially oceans. So carbon dioxide ends up in the oceans that way. Photosynthesis can take carbon dioxide and put it into the living world through plants. The photosynthetic process, then animals can eat the plants and they get carbon that way. When plants or animals die, you have decomposition that occurs that can release carbon dioxide right back into the atmosphere, or lead to the formation of fossil fuels. Ways that carbon dioxide gets back into the atmosphere is through the burning of fuels, or the burning of wood, or any other substance that's organic that gets burned can release carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere. And then cell respiration, plants and animals, fungus, protists, bacteria, you have cell respiration going on, which produces carbon dioxide as well. So sources of carbon dioxide going into the atmosphere is cell respiration, combustion are the main sources of that. Ways that carbon dioxide gets out of the atmosphere and into the living world through photosynthesis. And plants then convert this carbon dioxide into glucose, and then other things can eat plants. So that's basic things of the carbon cycle. And lastly, the nitrogen cycle. Really important cycle. That's probably the one that you struggle with the most in understanding what's going on. In the atmosphere, nitrogen exists as N2 gas. It's the most abundant substance in the atmosphere. 70% or greater. The atmosphere is nitrogen gas. The only way that nitrogen can get into the living world is through nitrogen fixation, where bacteria, certain types of bacteria that live on the roots of legumes, these bacteria can take nitrogen from the air and convert it into other forms of nitrogen. That's called nitrogen fixation. That can lead to the formation of ammonia, and then nitrification, which is turning that into nitrates like NO3 or NO2. So the bacteria can take the nitrogen gas through nitrogen fixation, form ammonia or nitrates from it. From there, plants can then assimilate that nitrate and ammonia into part of their body. So they then have nitrogen as their parts of their proteins and DNA, which can then be eaten by animals, and we can obtain nitrogen, protein, and DNA form and make it part of our protein and DNA after we digest the nitrogens that we get from plants that we eat or other animals that might be eaten by secondary consumers. All the waste that's formed, and when animals die, that will all lead to ammonias and nitrates being put back into the environment as well. The only way that all the nitrates and ammonia get back into the atmosphere is through denitrifying bacteria, denitrification, where there's other types of bacteria that turn nitrates and ammonia back into nitrogen gas, completing the cycle of nitrogen. That's it. Hopefully you go over this a few times, maybe practice it on your own to get ready for your quiz tomorrow.